welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Turn the Page. I'm your host today, Jen, and today I am joined by the writer and illustrator of an absolutely adorable, heartwarming, oh so sweet and funny graphic novel for children. I am so excited to talk about it. Welcome to the show. Could I ask you to introduce yourself and your book, please?
Yeah, of course. So my name is Debbie Fong. I'm the author and illustrator of a new series called The Faraway Forest, with the first book that just came out called WALLY'S ROUTE. And this series is all about this magical woodland village full of cute animal characters. And each book in the series is going to follow a different main character. So in book one, we're following Wally, who is the raccoon male carrier of the forest, and his best friend Bo, who is a little white rabbit. And we get to see them deliver mail on their mail route. And through that, we get to meet all the neighbors in the village and see how Wally deals with the minor challenges that come up on a daily mail route, which involves helping out his neighbors who might need a little hand with something, and also winning over his grumpiest neighbor, Mr. Sternbill, who is kind of like the um, sorry, he is the only like sorry, could I say that again? Okay, so in Wally's route, we get to follow Wally, the raccoon mail carrier, and his and his best friend, the white rabbit Bo, and we follow along as they deliver mail on their mail route. And through that, we get to meet all of their neighbors and get introduced to the magical places inside the forest, and watch as Wally tries to win over his grumpiest neighbor, Mr. Sternbill.
It's such a cute way to get to know the world and all of its residents. Before we get to the book itself, too much, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your journey to writing and illustrating and perhaps some of your other works that led you to this project.
Sure. So I didn't study art professionally. I always liked to draw, and my mom read me like kids manga growing up. So I had a very early introduction to comics, but I didn't consider doing comics or writing as like a professional career. I went to school for graphic design. But then after, when I was working as a designer, I was living in New York City, and I started to go to some of these indie comics conventions, which are just awesome little gatherings where people show up and set up a little table, and they'll sell usually like self-published, self-printed, little booklets of their own comic stories. And that was really inspiring to me. And I was like, oh, you can use comics to tell like all sorts of different stories. It doesn't have to be superheroes or manga. And so I started out making just like very short comics on my own, printing them out, sharing with my friends, going to conventions. And then eventually, I started to see a lot of my peers who were in the indie comics world start to do longer books for kids. This is when, in like the 2018-ish era, when a lot of the big publishers were looking to get into kids' graphic novels. They're all like starting their own imprints. And as I saw people that I knew starting to get deals, it kind of like, started I thinking like maybe I could do that too, even though it seems so daunting to do like a 200-page book. But I eventually did get a literary agent, and she helped me pitch my first graphic novel, which was called Next Stop. And that came out in 2024. And since then, I've just, this is a dream job to get to just write stories about, whatever I want, and like to build imaginary worlds and share them with readers. And so I'm, just going to see how long I can keep making these books.
Is your process any different when you are illustrating your own work versus other people's work? 'Cause I know you've done a little bit of illustrating for other people's writing. Is there, how does, like, when you know you're going to illustrate it, does that affect your writing process at all?
Yeah, for sure. So, like, it's definitely my favorite scenario is to draw my own story versus drawing somebody else's story. Because when I'm writing it, then I'm literally thinking like, okay, what would be really fun to draw? Like, what would not only be like visually fun for the reader, but like, what are my favorite things to draw? Because it makes a huge difference in I think like the outcome of the illustrations, and also like if I'm having fun in the process, I think that shows through, and obviously helps it go a lot faster. And so yeah, like a starting point for me is always like, what do I think would be really fun to draw in a new story, and then I like just gather ideas from there.
Nice. So, what was your inception point for the Faraway Forest and for Wally's Route? As a fellow civil servant, it is so nice to see a celebration of the Postal Service. Where did this all begin for you?
Yeah, so with all of my books so far, I've started with the setting. I usually just start like seeing visions of like this place that I want to tell a story inside. So like for my first book, Next Stop, that takes place in a desert. And so I was thinking about the desert for a long time before I like came up with the story. And for Wally's Route, it takes place in this very like quaint, magical forest that is like rich and colorful, and just like a charming place that feels also like safe and comfortable. And I started writing it in, I think it was like May 2020. So you can kind of see why I would be thinking about a story that is focused on community, and also at that time like very especially appreciating our essential workers, our delivery people, and yeah, and just like missing that like community feeling because we were kind of isolated at that time. And so I think that that's where it started. Yeah.
Nice. So, if you always think about setting first, where in the process did the map emerge for you? Because there's a gorgeous map at the beginning of the book, and
Mhm.
I'm curious, like, if that map preceded the story, or did that evolve out of your writing?
I'm not sure when I decided for sure I wanted to have the map, but this book and the series in general, I just let myself be very self-indulgent, and like, just I want to try to put all of my favorite things in it and see if the editor will let me, basically. So I thought back to like the books that I loved the most when I was little, the ones that became like cherished objects that I would bring everywhere, that read again and again. And they often had like extra little things to look at besides the story, like a map or like extra activities in the back. And so that's why with the Faraway Forest, I have the map in the beginning, which I think one fun thing is that with each book, as I introduce more places, more different people, the map will kind of shift and grow. In book two, it takes place mostly at night, so the map is like all nighttime colored, which is very cool. And yeah, I also have like the seek and find activity and like little how to draw extras in the back. So all of that is my way. I'm hoping that this book also becomes like a cherished object for some kids out there.
Oh, absolutely. I love maps because it's sort of like it gives it like a sense of reality, you know? It's like, oh, this is like a
Yeah.
document from this world. It's a relic, you know.
Hmm.
And I love the interactive elements of the seek and find and the drawing guides. It really does make it something that I think makes it very revisitable, you know, and something that you could go back and back to.
Yeah, I hope
Uh,
so.
Let's talk a little bit about Wally and his route. I love his personality. He's so warm and generous and compassionate. So, could you talk a little bit about him and sort of like maybe how you design the other residents to sort of like fit the story you want to tell, if that makes sense?
Yeah. With Wally, I think he was born out of like that particular time period where I was like, I want to write about a main character who kind of gives us hope and is aspirational. So he has all of these qualities which, I really admire, like how dedicated he is and how optimistic he is. And he just believes that, if you try your best, it's all going to work out. And just how he is like just so kind to everybody. And so I didn't want to give him too much of a challenge in this story. Like I didn't want too much conflict, even though that might be kind of non-traditional. But I just wanted it to be a gentle story. And so the challenges that he does come across with his neighbors are like, there's a little bit of a conflict where Mr. Sternbill is a little bit demanding, right? And he's asking Wally to like please be on time or be early. And Wally is pulled in a few different directions when like the other neighbors are asking him for help or things that take a little bit extra time, um, just to like like show care for other people. And so like the other characters, uh they need to ask for help in different ways. And so I wanted to show a range of like maybe like elderly folks and like younger people in the forest, and how the whole community is like very varied and diverse, but they all come together in the end to support each other.
I think it's a really good lesson for children, this sort of like the focus on like small interpersonal conflicts as opposed to like, the battle between good and evil, which is a lot of fun too. But,
Mm-hmm.
it's sort of more the small interpersonal stuff that kind of comes up in our lives more. And it's a good
Mm-hmm.
lesson for children to sort of learn compassion, resilience, and sort of like how to assume the best as opposed to the worst of other people around you.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely, I hope that these like small things can be applied to daily life for sure. And especially, I mean, now I feel like I a funny thing is I kind of feel like I manifested Mr. Sternbill because I moved to a new building like a few years ago, and there have been some like people that have challenged me in that kind of way where like they have a very tough exterior, and I just I was like, well, Wally told me what to do, so I'm just going to be like very, very nice to them, just persistent and kind. And, honestly, it has worked out. So I hope the lessons can be applied in real life. Yeah.
Yeah, wow, the book was testing you. It's like, okay, now walk the walk.
Right.
So I'd love if you could talk a little bit about working with your colorist
Hmm.
and your illustration process in general, because the illustrations are so warm and bubbly and inviting. And I'm curious about what it is like then to collaborate on the color and how that all went.
Yeah. So I got extremely lucky in finding Kayla Catanzaro, who is the colorist of all the books in the series. I actually found her through I back when I was just pitching the idea for this series to publishers. So put together a little pitch packet which included the story synopsis, and then I wanted to do just a few sample pages of artwork so the editor can see like what you're envisioning the final product will look like. And even though that was such an early stage, I wanted to find a colorist who would at least like be able to embody what I wanted to see on the page, even if down the line they didn't end up being the one that was attached to the project because of whatever circumstances. But I found Kayla at that point just by putting out the call on Twitter at the time. I was looking for a graphic novel colorist who could work in a painterly style, who would be available to do like an early reader kind of graphic novel. And lots of people sent in their portfolios, like so much talent. And Kayla, like, her work jumped out right away because it was so rich with so much depth. I love the textures she uses, and her like the lighting is all of this I personally cannot do in my coloring. Um, And that really fit my vision for the series, which I wanted to be like a cross between a picture book and a graphic novel for older kids. So, like, a lot of picture books feature like fully painted artwork. But then I was seeing like a lot of the graphic novels in this age group tend to be a little bit more like flat color or like sparser in their backgrounds. So I wanted to kind of like meld the two and make a transitional book where the backgrounds would be like painterly and have a lot of detail to kind of like explore and dive into. And so I hired Kayla to color just 3 pages in my sample, my pitch packet. And I gave her very little instruction and she did just like an amazing job where she just understood exactly what I wanted, like the tone. And then ever since then, she's I have to give her like barely any notes at all. She just gets it. So I'm super lucky and she's so talented. I hope that she gets to do lots more comics work from this because she just deserves it.
Her style goes so well with your illustration style, I think, because so much world building happens in your art, sort of like quietly in the background. Because there are like the residents that that we talk to through Wally, but then there's
Mm-hmm.
also like the other like one of my favorite little bits was like the little mushroom people who get a little bit of
Yeah.
early on. I'm like, and the color really I think invites your eye to linger and to absorb more of those details.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think you can tell like how much like fun Kayla put into the pages and me too. Like I didn't want any of it to ever feel lazy. And it wasn't like a chore for me to put in all these details because I was just letting myself be self-indulgent and just put in like all this fun stuff. So yeah.
Is that something you feel like is part of your process, like balancing the spirit of like play and work? Because it's interesting, like you have to be disciplined to create a graphic novel, but you also need to keep it like fun and interesting and keep your passion alive.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely feel that more and more as I get older. I'm like, well, why not just make it more fun? Like just life is short. Like if you can get away with it, then yeah, especially because my first book Next Stop was more serious in tone. And so when I got the opportunity to work on a younger series that's like, you know, that is a lot lighter and more easy, then I was like, well, I'm just gonna put all the fun stuff in this that I can.
So where do we go next in these in this series? I'd love to know if you are able to talk about it,
Yeah.
what you have planned and who we're going to see more of.
So the next book is going to be coming out in the fall 2026, and it's called Hester's Big Dream. So we get to meet Hester, who is a night owl. She makes 2 very small appearances in book 1. And Hester's story is that she recently moved to the forest and she's nocturnal, so she's out at nighttime, which is a fun way for us to get introduced to the nighttime world. But it is quieter and there are less animals out. And so she's lonely and she's looking for her group of friends. Hester thinks that, to find friends, she needs to figure out ways to stay up during the day so she can meet people. But ultimately, I think she discovers that the nighttime forest has more to offer. Uh, and it has been really fun to like imagine a different side of the forest that we haven't seen so far. And yeah, Hester as a character, she's much, at least to me, she's a little bit more relatable than Wally. She's flawed, she gets frustrated, but she's also has a lot of nerdy interests. Like she likes to write fan fiction, she likes to do cosplay. It's really cute. So I'm really excited.
Well, I am very excited to see more of Hester, and I thank you for taking the time to talk to us and for sharing your book. I am very excited to recommend it to our patrons.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, this is really great.
All right, listeners, please check out Faraway Forest, Wally's Route. It is just absolutely adorable. You're going to love it. And, as we approach the holidays, it is the perfect gift for the child or the grown-up child in your life. It's just a beautiful read. You can find it at your favorite bookstore or library or website. Do you have a bookstore that you like to send people to?
Oh, well, if you're in the New York area, my favorite children's bookstore is called Books of Wonder in Manhattan. They actually let me do a window display when Wally's book came out. So that was really, really fun.
Oh, I love that store. It's a very,
Yeah.
very good suggestion.
Yeah.
Okay, it is time to close this chapter. We'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.